Taylor Swift didn't just build a fan base. She built, like, emotional loyalty on a level most companies could never even dream of.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Swifties don't defend Taylor like a celebrity. They defend her like she's literal family.
Right. Welcome to the Make It Make Sense podcast. Today, we're doing a deep dive into one of the most powerful cultural forces of our time.
And we are not just talking about pop music today, by the way.
No, absolutely not. We are putting the entire Swiftie phenomenon under the microscope for you. We've pulled together this massive stack of sources.
Yeah, we've got articles from Psychology Today, a super deep dive essay on branding psychology versus cults, a piece from Bryant News, a foundational psych textbook, and my personal favorite, a highly critical Reddit thread from Travis and Taylor.
Which is brutal, by the way, but the mission here is to figure out what this massive culture reveals about, human identity, belonging, and basically how we all behave on the internet.
Exactly, because we really do need to emphasize the scale here. The magnitude of this behavior is it's completely unprecedented in modern pop culture.
Right, let's set the stage for you. We are talking about fans standing on the pavement in Denver in the blazing midsummer heat until they literally pass out.
Just to buy a T-shirt from a merch truck, not even for tickets.
Exactly. And we're looking at like an Instagram post about her dating life that shatters engagement records. 1 million reposts in 6 hours.
We're talking to full-grown adults getting matching tattoos.
Yeah, and a fan base so incredibly organized that they practically triggered an actual congressional investigation into Ticketmaster.
Which is wild. It's a level of rapid mobilization that most political campaigns would deeply envy.
Swifties have FBI-level investigative skills. I mean, at this point, they don't stream songs. They run organized military campaigns.
They really do.
But okay, let's unpack this. Because if we step back and look at this objectively, the most logical question you have to ask is, why?
Right. Why do people care this much?
Yeah. Why dedicate so much of your finite time on Earth, your money, and your emotional energy to someone who fundamentally doesn't even know you exist?
Well, to answer that, we have to strip away the music entirely. Forget the catchy choruses. What we're really looking at is fundamental human wiring.
Okay, break that down for us.
So if you look at the core of human psychology, bringing in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs here, once our basic survival needs are met, our brains immediately start screaming for the next vital necessity, which is love and belonging.
Right, the non-survival deficiency needs.
Exactly. And William Glasser's psychological theory backs this up too. We are, by our very nature, deeply social creatures. We are meant to be in a tribe.
Meaning we literally cannot function in isolation without our hardware starting to glitch.
That's a great way to put it. When we don't have strong interpersonal relationships, we become miserable. And look at the context of our modern world, right? We are currently experiencing a massive epidemic of loneliness.
So true. Everyone is so isolated.
Yeah, traditional communities are fracturing. So for millions of people, fandoms have stepped in as the cure for that loneliness. You put on the right friendship bracelet, and suddenly you have thousands of friends.
I hear that, but here's where I have to push back a little bit. A real community, a real tribe, involves two-way communication.
Sure.
Like if I have a best friend, they actually text me back. They show up to my birthday. How does a totally one-sided relationship trick the human brain into feeling like it's a real reciprocal bond?
Well, that's the magic of what psychologists call parasocial relationships.
Right, the pseudo-intimacy thing.
Exactly. These are one-sided bonds where a fan feels a profound, deeply personal sense of intimacy with a public figure. And the Bryant News source points out that social media just pours high-octane gasoline on this.
Whoa, for sure.
Taylor Swift is arguably the absolute master of this. By sharing vulnerable details of her breakups, her fears, and, leaving coded Easter eggs in her videos, she engineers this highly effective illusion of closeness.
The Easter eggs. It's essentially an inside joke, and nothing makes you feel closer to a person than sharing an inside joke that the rest of the room doesn't understand.
It feels exclusive.
Yeah.
It feels special.
But still, logically, the brain has to know it's not a real friendship. You know you're looking at a screen.
Consciously, yes. You know she isn't going to invite you over for coffee.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, the brain doesn't actually make that distinction very well.
Wait, really? It just ignores reality.
Kind of. The textbook we reviewed talks about this fascinating psychological phenomenon called the mere exposure effect, coined by Robert Zajonc. Basically, the more frequently you are exposed to something, the more affection you subconsciously develop for it.
Okay, that makes sense. I've definitely hated songs on the radio the first time I heard them, but by the 20th time, I'm like humming the chorus in the shower.
Right. But it goes way beyond catchy songs. There was this wild study done in the late 60s where a student attended a college class for months, entirely enveloped in a large black bag.
Wait, a literal black bag? Like a trash bag?
Just a completely opaque black bag. All you could see were his bare feet.
That is deeply weird.
It was. And initially, the other students in the class were extremely hostile. They were creeped out. They were angry. But over time, simply through repeated harmless exposure, that hostility completely vanished.
So they just got used to the bag guy.
More than that, it turned into curiosity, and eventually the class actually developed a sense of friendship and fierce protectiveness over the person in the bag.
That is wild. So just by being there consistently, you wear down the brain's defenses.
Yes. Now take that baseline mere exposure effect and apply it to a massive pop star. You have an artist who is highly visible, constantly on your feed, and she is actively vocalizing your own hidden, messy emotions.
Oh, wow. So it's the exposure plus validation.
Exactly. Combine that with a concept called positive escapism. The real world is chaotic, but Taylor Swift's world is a safe, predictable, emotional space. Your brain registers that constant, validating presence as a real, protective friendship.
So she becomes an emotional safety blanket.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, okay, what does this all mean when someone actually critiques her? Because feeling connected is one thing. Enjoying the escapism is one thing.
Right.
But if I go online and say, hey, I think her new album is a little repetitive, and a fan takes that as an intense personal attack, that's where this deep dive takes a serious turn.
And this is the core twist of our research today.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that at a certain point, the defense isn't really about the music anymore.
It's not.
No, it's about the listener's own identity.
Yes. This was the biggest aha moment in the source material for me. The realization that saying I'm a Swiftie isn't a musical preference, like saying I enjoy jazz.
Not at all.
It's a load-bearing personality trait.
In the clinical literature, this is called identity fusion. It's when a fan's personal identity and a brand's identity become entirely enmeshed. The boundary between me and Taylor just dissolves.
So how does that play out in real life?
Well, think about how we present ourselves to the world. Sociologists like Irving Goffman talk about life as essentially a theatrical play. We are all actors, and we use props, costumes, and scripts to project a specific image to our audience.
Let me try to translate that. So, the hundreds of dollars spent on friendship bracelets, the cowboy boots, the incredibly elaborate Eras tour outfits.
Yeah.
Those aren't just fun concert clothes. They are the brand uniforms. They are the theatrical props people use to signal to the world, this is who I am, these are my values, and this is my tribe.
Precisely. You're signaling your membership. Interestingly, that highly critical Reddit thread we analyzed actually observed this exact behavior.
Oh, the Travis and Taylor one.
Yeah, albeit with a lot of snark. They noted that many dedicated Swifties fit a very specific demographic profile. They called them Pinterest princesses.
Pinterest princesses. That's, oddly descriptive.
Right. It refers to an aesthetic of millennial or Gen Z women who lean heavily into nostalgia, romance, baking, knitting, and a sort of cozy femininity. The fandom provides them with a globally validated, totally safe space to express that specific theatrical self.
Which is completely fine and honestly sounds quite lovely until that theatrical self feels threatened.
Exactly.
Because you can't casually dislike Taylor Swift online anymore. You say you skip a song and suddenly you're on trial in a digital courtroom.
And that extreme reaction is the direct result of identity fusion. If the music has become a surrogate for their own self-esteem and the fandom is their primary community, then criticizing the music is mathematically identical to criticizing them personally.
So their brain processes a critique of a billionaire's album as a direct threat to their own ego.
Yes, exactly.
And it goes the other way, too. It's not just about defending against attacks. It's about claiming her victories as their own. One of the articles brought up her romance with Travis Kelce.
Huh.
There is an actual psychological mechanism for why fans care so deeply about a celebrity's dating life, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a well-documented phenomenon known as burgeoning, which stands for basking in reflected glory.
Basking in reflected glory.
Right. We usually see this studied in the context of die-hard sports fans.
Yeah.
When your favorite football team wins the Super Bowl, your brain actually gets a massive surge of dopamine and a boost in self-esteem.
Almost exactly as if you had been on the field scoring the touchdown yourself.
Exactly. Which explains why sports fans say, "We won today," instead the team won.
Right.
So fans are burgeoning through Taylor's personal life. After following her lyrical heartbreak for over a decade, Seeing her find this highly publicized fairy tale romance with a star athlete feels like a personal, vindicating victory for the fans themselves.
That makes total sense, but the extremes of it are still jarring to me. One of the sources quoted an Instagram user reacting to a rumor about Taylor and Travis getting engaged, and the comment was literally, "Cried more for this engagement than my own."
It really highlights the sheer, undeniable emotional weight of that parasocial bond.
Wait, people really do this? Crying more for a celebrity engagement than your own actual life events? That's wild.
It is wild.
But it also leads us into the darker, more uncomfortable side of this deep dive. Because if human identity is this deeply fused to a massive corporate brand, what happens when it goes wrong?
That's where the branding psychology gets really interesting.
Because one of the essays we reviewed went straight for the jugular, comparing the architectural mechanics of the Swiftie fandom to actual historical cults. Now, hold on. Are we really sitting here comparing a pop star's fan base to destructive groups like Heaven's Gate or NXIVM?
I know it sounds like massive hyperbole at first glance.
It really does.
But the research makes a very careful, crucial distinction here. Taylor Swift is not a literal cult leader, and her fandom is not a cult.
Okay, good to clarify.
However, and this is a big however, the psychological mechanics running her billion-dollar fan ecosystem are built from the exact same structural blueprints as cult architecture.
Okay, let's look at that playbook. Because what do premium brands, extreme fandoms, and cults all actually sell? It's not just a product, right?
Right. They don't sell T-shirts or music or theology. They sell three deeply intoxicating things: identity, community, and certainty.
Wow.
And to maintain control over those three things, they employ very specific sociological mechanics. The first one is yes versus them architecture. Any powerful group needs a strict boundary between the enlightened in-group and the hostile outside world.
Which means you need an enemy roster. You have to have a villain.
Always.
For Swifties, that roster is extensive. It's Ticketmaster, it's music executives like Scooter Braun, it's specific ex-boyfriends, or it's journalists who dare to write a lukewarm review. Nothing brings people together quite like a shared enemy.
It's a brilliant way to manufacture internal group cohesion. If you have an external threat, you force the group to look inward for validation and huddle together.
That's just so true. What's the next mechanic?
The second mechanic is the use of manufactured scarcity and loaded language. Think about how cults use the fear of missing out on ultimate salvation. Massive brands use that same psychological lever, just with, limited midnight merchandise drops or highly exclusive concert codes.
Ah, the FOMO.
Right. It triggers a cocktail of dopamine and cortisol in the brain that makes people act frantically before they have time to think critically.
And the loaded language is everywhere. The Easter eggs, the dizzying acronyms for her songs. Like, if you go online and you don't know what ATWTMVTVEFTV means,
which translates to all too well 10-minute version, Taylor's version from the vault.
You actually know that. Amazing. Yes, exactly. If you don't know that specific string of letters, you are immediately outed as an outsider.
You aren't part of the tribe. It creates a strict purity test.
But here's where the psychology gets really fascinating to me. We looked at the concept of cognitive dissonance and how the brain handles information that shatters its worldview.
Yes, Leon Festinger's theory. This traces back to a legendary sociological study from the 50s. Researchers infiltrated a UFO doomsday cult that believed the world was going to end on a very specific Tuesday.
Okay.
When that Tuesday came and went and the world didn't end, logic dictates that the members would realize they had been fooled and just go home.
Right, you'd think they'd say, well, we messed up.
But they didn't. Instead, they doubled down. They became even more fervent believers, claiming their faith had actually saved the world.
Because the mental discomfort, that cognitive dissonance of admitting they had wasted their lives and looked foolish, was literally too painful for their brains to process.
Exactly. To protect their egos, they simply altered their perception of reality.
And we see this exact same defensive mechanism in the extreme wings of the fandom. When fans are faced with hard evidence that contradicts their core belief that Taylor is like a perfect, environmentally conscious underdog.
Like, say, reports highlighting her extreme private jet usage and massive carbon emissions.
Yes. When they see that, they experience that exact same mental pain. Their brain shorts out.
And how do they resolve that pain?
Ooh.
This brings us to perhaps the most concerning mechanic we found in the research: the use of thought-terminating cliches.
Thought-terminating cliches.
Right. High control groups train their members to shut down critical thinking by supplying them with ready-made phrases whenever doubt or criticism surfaces.
Oh, I see this all the time online. Instead of engaging with the actual data about the private jet or a critique of her billionaire business practices, the response is instantly, "You're just jealous."
Or you're a misogynist.
Exactly, or "You just don't understand her artistry." They don't engage with the substance of the argument. They just deploy a thought-terminating cliche like a smoke bomb to shut the entire conversation down.
It protects the identity from being punctured. It operates as a psychological shield.
But this raises an incredibly important question for us. Shutting down an argument online with the cliche is annoying, certainly, but where do we draw the line? At what point does passionate, healthy fandom mutate into something that functions like aggressive doctrinal enforcement? Because at a certain point, being annoying in a comment section escalates into real-world harm.
According to the behavioral analysis we reviewed, fandom crosses the line into cult-like enforcement when you start seeing 5 specific behavioral markers.
Okay, lay them out for us.
1. Any criticism of the artist is immediately treated as a personal threat.
Oh.
2. Internal dissent fans questioning things from inside the group is swiftly punished or ostracized.
Wow.
3. Loyalty is no longer just something you feel. It must be aggressively performed as a metric of your worth. 4. The artist's behavior is viewed as completely unquestionable and infallible.
And the 5th?
5. The targeted harassment of outsiders is rationalized as a noble act of protection.
And we absolutely saw this mirrored in that highly critical Reddit thread. Users there, many of whom were former fans, claim that the extreme fan base mirrors a victim complex.
Yeah, that was a huge point of discussion.
Because the narrative is always that the artist is the victim of haters, or the media, or the industry. So the fans adopt that same defensive posture. By constantly viewing themselves as victims, it gives them moral permission to act incredibly aggressively.
It creates a very dangerous permission structure. We've seen numerous documented instances where music critics and journalists receive coordinated graphic death threats simply for giving an album an 8 out of 10 instead of a 10.
Over a music review.
Or for critiquing a setlist change.
Yeah.
When coordinated digital harassment campaigns are genuinely framed in the minds of fans as protecting the artist, the community has effectively adopted the chilling logic of a private security apparatus.
But again, we really have to ground this and draw a clear distinction for you, the listener.
Okay.
We brought up NXIVM and Heaven's Gate earlier as comparisons for the psychological architecture.
Yes.
Obviously, the outcomes of a pop music fandom and a destructive doomsday cult are vastly, vastly different.
Crucially different. And that is perhaps the ultimate thesis of our deep dive today. The difference between a massive billion-dollar brand like Apple or Taylor Swift and a destructive cult is the ceiling on consequences.
The ceiling on consequences.
Right. Extreme cults end in federal prison sentences, financial ruin, or horrific tragedy. Extreme Swiftie culture ends in cyberbullying, doxing, and coordinated social media attacks.
Which, to be fair, is still genuinely harmful to the people on the receiving end.
Absolutely. It causes real distress. But the underlying psychology of extreme conformity is identical. We looked at classic psychology experiments by Solomon Asch, where people are put in a room with actors.
Oh, the line experiment.
Yes. The actors purposely give the wrong answer to a simple question, like which line on a piece of paper is the longest. A terrifying majority of normal, rational people will consciously conform to the group and give the obviously wrong answer simply to avoid the social discomfort of standing out.
The human urge to agree with the majority so you don't get kicked out of the tribe is just too powerful to resist.
Precisely. The mechanics of group conformity, the need for belonging, the fear of ostracization, these are identical across all human groups. It's just the real-world consequences of that conformity that differ depending on who is leading the group.
So what does this all mean for us if we step back, take a breath, and look at this entire mountain of research? This phenomenon isn't really about Taylor Swift at all, is it?
Not at its core, no. She just happens to be the focal point.
Right. She is incredibly talented at utilizing these mechanics, but she did not invent human nature.
Exactly. It's really a mirror reflecting how modern people search for connection, identity, and a sense of belonging in a digital world.
The catchy music, the glittering friendship bracelets, the sold-out stadium tours, they are just the modern vessels.
Yeah. It's humans doing what humans have done for tens of thousands of years. Finding a tribe to feel safe, wearing the colors of that tribe, and defending the borders of that tribe at all costs.
And if we connect this to the broader trajectory of our society, it leaves us with a rather unsettling reality. We are currently taking our deepest, most vulnerable psychological needs, our need for community, for meaning, and for a defined identity.
Needs that historically used to be fulfilled by our local neighborhoods, our families, or civic and religious groups.
Exactly. And today, we are outsourcing those fundamental needs to massive, highly calculated, billion-dollar corporate celebrity brands.
Which is all fun and games while the music is playing and the tour is rolling. But, to leave you with a final thought to chew on today,
Yeah, what's the takeaway here?
what happens to society when those massive corporate brands inevitably pivot or fail or somehow betray that immense sacred trust?
Oh, wow.
When a fan base that operates with the emotional intensity of a family suddenly realizes it's ultimately just a consumer base keeping a corporate machine running, where does all that displaced, fiercely tribal emotional energy go next?
That, I think, is the multi-billion-dollar question of our era.
It really is.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Make It Make Sense podcast. Keep questioning the world around you, look closely at the tribes you belong to, and remember, sometimes human behavior is simple to diagnose. But when it comes to the human mind and why we will vehemently defend our favorite pop stars like they're our own flesh and blood, we're navigating a psychological landscape that is entirely muddy waters. See you next time.